Hello, dear Libra. This isn't just another horoscope reading, this is a wake-up call from the universe, meant only for those ready to see the truth behind the smile. So let me ask you, have you been feeling like something's off lately, even if you can't quite explain it? A strange tension in your chest? A recurring dream that won't let you rest? Maybe you've caught yourself questioning someone's intentions, someone close, someone familiar. If you nodded even slightly just now, this reading is for you. I know that you didn't find this video by accident. At this very moment, there's an energy shift stirring around you, and you've been sensing it, haven't you? What feels like restlessness is your spirit picking up on frequencies others can't hear. What feels like discomfort may actually be clarity trying to break through. And what brought you here today is not chance. It's alignment. Welcome to Zodiac Whisper Tarot, where your intuition meets its reflection and where no truth stays hidden forever. You see, Libra, your soul craves harmony, but harmony built on falsehood isn't balance, it's sacrifice. You've been giving the benefit of the doubt, silencing your instincts, maybe even telling yourself that you were overthinking things. But you weren't. You were picking up on something real, and that something is now rising to the surface. I'm not here to scare you, I'm here to empower you. You are not fragile. You are not naive. You are perceptive. You are grace wrapped in courage. And today, we begin uncovering what your inner knowing has been whispering all along. Someone you trusted has not been as loyal as they appeared. A neighbor saw something. A detail. A moment. A truth that could no longer hide. And now, it's time to bring light to it, not to destroy, but to free you. But before we dive deep, let me pause and say thank you. Truly. Every like, every comment you share, every time you hit that subscribe button, it brings you closer to this soul-led community. It fuels this channel and makes it possible for us to share these powerful messages that awaken hearts and realign paths. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here. And Libra, trust me when I say you'll want to stay with me until the very last moment of this reading, because what the universe is preparing to reveal is nothing short of remarkable. It's more than confirmation, it's liberation. So tell me, what pulled you here today? Was it a flicker of doubt? A dream you couldn't shake? Or maybe the sacred number 11, the number of intuition and divine insight, has been showing up in your life? Whatever it was, your soul brought you here for a reason. So stay with me, stay open. Because the truth is ready, and your heart already knows it. Let's begin. There's something quietly powerful about the moments when everything feels just a little off. Not chaotic, not loud, just misaligned. For someone like you, Libra, who lives and breathes through balance, beauty, and grace, even the subtlest shift in the emotional atmosphere doesn't go unnoticed. That's not a flaw. That's a gift. A finely tuned compass that alerts you when the energy around you no longer mirrors your inner peace. What you've been feeling isn't confusion, it's clarity beginning to rise. You may have brushed it off, telling yourself you were just tired, overly sensitive, or overthinking. But the truth is, your spirit has been quietly gathering information long before your mind could name it. You've been absorbing the unspoken. When the scales of Libra begin to tremble, it's not because they're weak, it's because they're designed to sense even the faintest tilt in the world around them. This phase you're in now, where dreams feel strange, conversations feel layered, and your body seems to carry a fatigue that rest alone doesn't cure. This is the soul's way of urging you to pause and pay attention. You are not being paranoid. You are being awakened. And sometimes, awakening begins with discomfort, not to punish you, but to redirect you. The energy that surrounds you has been touched by something unsaid, something unseen, but very real. The presence of someone close, once trusted, has quietly started to disrupt your peace. That's difficult to accept, especially when your heart naturally leans toward harmony, forgiveness, and seeing the good in others. But even goodness, when weaponized, can become manipulation. Even soft words can carry sharp intentions. This isn't about blame, it's about recognition. Because once you name the feeling, it loses its power to confuse you. In astrology, Libra is ruled by Venus, the planet of love, refinement, and justice. And justice, dear Libra, begins with truth. Not external judgment, but the internal reckoning that asks, am I at peace with the way I've been treated? Am I honoring my own worth, or am I staying silent to preserve the illusion of peace? These questions aren't easy, but they are sacred. They don't just change your outer world, they realign your center. And right now, you are being offered that chance. When something feels misaligned, it usually is. And the brave path, the Libra path, is not to erupt, but to recalibrate. To bring light to shadow. To restore grace, not by pretending everything is fine, but by stepping into honesty, gently but firmly. That neighbor who saw what you missed? That wasn't a coincidence. That was confirmation. A reminder that you don't have to carry uncertainty alone. Sometimes, truth shows itself not to shatter your world, but to free you from the weight of false peace. You might remember a quiet teaching: we're not meant to mold ourselves into silence just to make others comfortable. You are allowed, encouraged to choose clarity over comfort. To protect your peace, even when that means making hard decisions. There is wisdom in knowing when to stay, and deeper strength in knowing when to step away. You do not owe loyalty to those who drain you. You are not obligated to hold space for people who've shown you they cannot hold yours. If you've been feeling the weight of unspoken tension, take this as your invitation to breathe deeper. To honor the knowing within you. To allow the scales to reset, even if that means letting go of what once felt familiar. This moment is not about blame or bitterness, it's about liberation. And liberation, for someone like you, begins not with shouting, but with choosing stillness rooted in truth. Let that be your compass moving forward. It's often the softest voices, the kindest smiles, and the most familiar hands that become the hardest truths to face. For you, Libra, someone ruled by Venus, the planet of connection, aesthetics, and diplomacy, relationships are sacred ground. You naturally seek harmony, you offer grace without needing to be asked, and you extend benefit of the doubt more times than you care to admit. But sometimes, what appears graceful on the surface can carry a quiet imbalance underneath. And now, the scales are tilting. Not dramatically, but unmistakably. The presence of someone in your life, someone who once held your trust, perhaps even your heart, is beginning to show signs of misalignment. Maybe they offered support when you were low, maybe they spoke sweetly when you needed reassurance, maybe they knew exactly what to say to make you feel safe. But if you look back closely now, you might see that much of that comfort came with conditions. Subtle expectations. Emotional strings disguised as loyalty. And somewhere along the line, you gave more of yourself than you realized, not because you were blind, but because you were open. That is not your weakness. That is your strength. But even strength must be protected when it becomes a doorway for quiet control. The cards drawn today, Justice in reverse and the Three of Pentacles reversed, speak of an imbalance that has gone unspoken for too long. Justice reversed suggests not only unfairness, but a distortion of truth. Someone may be presenting a version of reality that leaves you doubting your own. And the reversed Three of Pentacles hints at a relationship dynamic that appears collaborative, but lacks true trust and mutual respect. These aren't loud betrayals. They're slow leaks in your emotional foundation. And now, something or someone has brought it into view. The figure of the neighbor in this story matters deeply. Not because of what they saw, but because they represent what you're beginning to see yourself. In astrology, Libra rules the 7th house: partnerships, contracts, and reflection. The people around you are mirrors. And sometimes it takes a completely unrelated observer to reflect something back to you that you couldn't quite put into words. There's no shame in that. It's not weakness to need a second glance. It's wisdom to listen when that glance confirms what your gut already whispered. Let's pause and bring in a simple truth, one echoed in many forms of ancient wisdom. Just because someone has walked beside you doesn't mean they're walking in the same direction. Just because someone says they support you doesn't mean they want you to outgrow them. Sometimes, the ones who seem most invested in your peace are actually trying to preserve their control over your calm. And when you start to shine too brightly, when you step more fully into your worth, they quietly recoil, or worse, subtly undermine. You were never meant to live in a shell of peace just to avoid disappointing someone. Real peace is not the absence of tension, it's the presence of truth. And you, Libra, are being called to ask yourself a tender but courageous question. Is this connection nourishing your spirit, or simply preserving a performance? Remember, kindness is noble, but clarity is sacred. This week, lean into the energy of the number 6. Yes, it symbolizes harmony, but it also teaches boundaries. Harmony without boundaries is not harmony, it's appeasement. Wrap yourself in the soft blue-green of turquoise or the quiet strength of pale copper colors that amplify gentle intuition and elegant strength. Avoid soft pastels that blur your emotional edges. You don't need to harden your heart, you just need to define where it begins and ends. In this moment, Libra, you are not being asked to judge or condemn, only to see clearly. Because once you see, you cannot unsee. And once you honor your knowing, even softly, the scales begin to return to balance. On your terms. Sometimes the cracks don't show up right away. They begin as quiet discomforts, a gentle pulling at your energy, a subtle shift in how your heart responds to the presence of certain people. For Libra, the peacemaker, the artist of balance, your natural instinct is to smooth things over, to adjust yourself in the name of harmony. But harmony that costs your emotional truth is not harmony at all. It's a kind of silencing, and silencing, over time, becomes too heavy to hold. There comes a moment when something inside you can no longer go along with what appears fine. The Tower card in tarot doesn't always signal destruction, sometimes it arrives as a gentle jolt, a necessary collapse of false foundations. It shows up to say, this cannot continue as it has. And while that might sound frightening, it's actually a gift. It means you're no longer willing to carry what isn't yours, no longer available for the illusion of peace that hides inner unrest. The discomfort is your truth stretching out its arms. When the Lover's card appears reversed, it often points to the aching realization that a connection you once trusted may have been built on uneven ground. It doesn't mean you were foolish, it means you were open. You loved with sincerity. You gave with trust. And now you are being asked to look at where that love might have gone unreciprocated, or worse, misunderstood as weakness. Libra, you don't need to blame yourself for choosing someone who turned out to be misaligned with your growth. You only need to acknowledge the shift and choose differently now. Astrologically, when the moon forms a tense angle with Saturn, emotions that have long been compressed tend to rise to the surface. This can feel overwhelming, especially for someone like you who thrives in emotional clarity and social equilibrium. But what's surfacing now is what's been waiting to be witnessed. Not by anyone else, by you. The tears, the tightness in your chest, the tension in your back, these aren't signs of falling apart. They're signs of coming home to what's real. There's wisdom in checking in with your emotional environment. Take a quiet moment. Write the first name that comes to mind when you think of emotional heaviness, and ask yourself honestly, does this connection bring me peace or does it leave me anxious? This isn't about pushing people away, it's about returning to yourself. Relationships are meant to support our expansion, not suppress it. If someone in your life requires you to shrink, to stay quiet when your soul wants to speak, that's not a connection, it's a contract you never agreed to sign. In moments like these, I'm reminded of a simple teaching that peace isn't the absence of conflict, it's the presence of honesty. We weren't meant to carry burdens in silence just to keep things appearing nice. We are allowed to make decisions that protect our spirit, even if they disrupt someone else's comfort. You don't have to fight. You don't have to prove. You only have to decide that your peace is worth honoring. So if you've been holding your breath, walking on eggshells, smiling through tension, let this be the moment you give yourself permission to exhale. To say, this no longer fits me, and to choose what does. Your heart isn't fragile. It's discerning. And it's telling you something now, not with noise, but with clarity. Listen. You don't have to shatter the mirror to change the reflection. But you do have to stop pretending the crack isn't there. The truth doesn't shout. It simply stops hiding. What's remarkable about the human body is how softly, yet persistently, it speaks when the heart has no words. For Libra, a sign attuned to grace, fairness, and equilibrium, emotional overwhelm often doesn't roar, it simmers beneath the surface. You may find yourself rubbing the back of your neck more often lately, tossing and turning long past midnight, or waking up with a heaviness you can't explain. These aren't just physical symptoms. They're signals, quiet nudges from within, letting you know something needs your attention. When your mind tries to keep the peace, your body often carries what your words haven't released. There's a particular kind of tired that comes from holding back too much for too long. As a Libra, your instinct is to keep things beautiful, conversations, relationships, even internal thoughts. But beauty isn't found in bottling discomfort. It's found in balance, and sometimes, that means acknowledging the weight you've been carrying in silence. When the emotional scale tips too far in one direction, the body picks up the slack. Stiff shoulders, a restless chest, tension, headaches, these are not random. They are reflections of emotional imbalance seeking restoration. In astrology, Libra rules the kidneys and the lower back areas of the body that are deeply symbolic of support, of filtering, of balance. When these areas feel strained, it can suggest that emotionally you've taken on too much of what isn't yours, or you've denied your own needs to keep someone else comfortable. This is not a judgment. This is a chance to gently return to yourself. Your nervous system isn't betraying you, it's trying to protect you. It's asking for space, for softness, for you. There is power in simple rituals. 5 minutes of conscious breathing each morning may sound small, but it recalibrates more than just your lungs. It sends a message to your body: I'm listening. A warm cup of chamomile tea before bed, paired with an hour away from the blue glow of your phone screen, becomes more than a routine, it becomes a boundary. A way of saying, my peace matters. Even the gentle act of massaging your own neck and shoulders reminds you that you don't always have to wait for someone else to give you care. You can give it to yourself. The law of attraction teaches us that the energy we hold shapes what we invite. But what it rarely tells us is that repressed emotion is also energy heavy, stuck, misunderstood energy, and it, too, draws in more of what reflects its weight. That's why honoring your truth, even in the smallest ways, is a powerful shift. You don't have to explain your feelings to be valid. You don't have to prove your exhaustion to earn rest. When you give yourself permission to feel, to speak gently, and to move from honesty, the universe meets you there. And more importantly, you meet yourself there. In gentle moments of self-care, color can also be a companion. Silver and moonlit blue, the shades of quiet clarity, are ideal for you now. They don't shout. They don't demand. They simply reflect light in soft ways, reminding you that there's strength in softness. That healing doesn't have to be loud to be real. That your restoration begins not when someone sees your effort, but when you see your own need and respond with kindness. What your body is asking for right now isn't perfection or performance. It's presence. Not more doing, but more being. And being begins when you stop pushing away the signals and start listening to the sacred language of your own rhythms. You deserve to feel light again, not because you've earned it, but because you've always been worthy of it. Sometimes clarity doesn't arrive with a thunderclap, it comes like a window slowly opening to fresh air. And once it opens, once the light begins to stream in, there's no way to unsee what you've seen. That's where you are now, Libra. You've come to recognize that someone who once stood close no longer belongs in your sacred space, not because you've stopped caring, but because your spirit no longer feels safe in their presence. And that recognition isn't a failure. It's a form of liberation. You're not losing someone, you're releasing what was never fully aligned with your peace to begin with. There's a grace in endings that often gets overlooked. We're taught to view goodbye as a rupture, but for you a sign that thrives on beauty and justice. Closure can be an act of healing. The Ace of Swords appearing in your reading is no accident. It represents a sharp truth, yes, but not a painful one. It's the kind of truth that slices through confusion like light through fog. It brings you back to your center. It says, here is what's real. Now what will you do with it? And perhaps the answer lies in stillness more than reaction. Libra, you are learning that silence can be sacred when it holds clarity rather than avoidance. You don't need to fight, explain, or justify your choices to anyone who was never listening with open ears. The Nine of Pentacles, your second card, confirms the power in standing alone, not in isolation, but in sovereignty. It's about reclaiming the energy you once poured into proving your worth and channeling it instead into nourishing your own growth. This is your season of refinement. You're not becoming someone new, you're returning to the version of yourself that was never dependent on someone else's approval to shine. Numerologically, the number 9 holds powerful symbolism for you now. It speaks of graceful endings, of walking away not in anger but in peace. In the cycle of life, 9 represents the moment just before the reset, the space between letting go and beginning again. And you, Libra, are standing at that sacred threshold. There is no rush. There is only presence. There is only the knowing that by closing one door, you're giving another the space to appear. This is where you might take a moment and write what I like to call a gentle goodbye. Not for them, for you. No accusations, no defensiveness. Just a quiet acknowledgement that the energy between you has shifted. That you're choosing peace over performance. That you're ready to stop shrinking just to fit into someone else's comfort zone. That you're releasing the illusion so you can finally breathe. There's wisdom echoed in many teachings that say when the truth is revealed, our responsibility isn't to fix what's broken, it's to walk in the light of that truth with love and self-respect. You're being asked now not to harden your heart, but to honor it. To soften into the power of discernment. And to trust that what's meant for you will never require you to abandon yourself to keep it. You're not walking away from connection, you're walking toward alignment. And in doing so, you create room for the blessings that have been circling your energy, waiting for an opening. So if you've ever chosen to leave quietly instead of staying to fight for something that no longer fit, you've already taken the first step. That's not weakness. That's evolution. And you're not alone. Drop a gemstone if that resonates with your journey and remind someone else that quiet strength is still strength. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is not hold on, but let go with grace. And now, dear Libra, we've arrived at that quiet moment, the space where insight meets choice, where truth gently rests in your hands, asking not for noise, but for action born from understanding. If you've followed this journey all the way to here, it means your soul is already doing the deeper work. It means something resonated, something aligned, something whispered, "This message is for me." And it was. You've heard the invitation clearly, not to fight, not to react, but to realign. To let the truth rise without resistance and to honor it without guilt. The insights you've received today are not just words in a video. They are keys. Keys that open doors to self-ownership, emotional liberation, and a higher form of balance, the kind that no one can take from you again. But now the real question is, what will you do with this clarity? Will you return to what feels familiar even if it drains you, or will you step forward with grace into a new chapter, one where your needs are not minimized, and your energy is no longer compromised? What would shift in your life if you simply stopped apologizing for outgrowing spaces that no longer honor you? Can you imagine the version of yourself that no longer negotiates peace at the cost of authenticity? You don't have to change everything overnight. True transformation begins with small, intentional steps: a conscious breath before reacting, a boundary gently set, a no spoken without guilt, or even a yes offered only when your heart agrees. These are the choices that build a new foundation, not louder, just clearer. Not harsher, but firmer. Not detached, just sovereign. Maybe tonight you'll take 5 quiet minutes to write that gentle goodbye. Maybe you'll choose to wear the color that reminds you of your intuition. Maybe you'll speak up in a moment where you usually would have stayed silent. Whatever it is, trust that even the smallest shift in your behavior sends a clear signal to the universe. I'm ready to be aligned with what honors me. And I want you to remember something else: you're not alone on this path. There are others, just like you, awakening quietly in the dark, gently taking back their energy, rebuilding from softness, and finding their strength in stillness. You are part of something bigger. This space, this channel, Zodiac Whisper Tarot, was created to hold you in that unfolding. Every reading, every whisper, every story here is a light on your path, but it's your courage that turns that light into action. So tell me, beautiful soul, what resonated most deeply with you in today's reading? Was there a moment that felt like it was written just for your heart? Have you recently chosen peace over pleasing? Or perhaps you've sensed a shift in someone close and you're learning to listen to your body's truth more clearly. I'd love to hear it in the comments. Don't hold back, your voice might be the mirror someone else needs to remember they're not walking this alone. If this video moved something inside you, if it offered even a small pocket of clarity or comfort, please consider liking, subscribing, and joining our growing community here at Zodiac Whisper Tarot. Your presence, your energy, your engagement, it means more than you know. Every click, every comment, every share helps this space stay alive and reach the people who need it most. Thank you for your time, your heart, your presence. You are more powerful than you've been told, more intuitive than you realize, and more deserving than you've allowed yourself to believe. Let this be the beginning of a new chapter, one where you no longer betray your own balance for anyone else's comfort. Until next time, keep honoring your truth, keep choosing your peace, and remember, your soul already knows the way. All that's left is for you to trust it.